Pledge of Allegiance and Invocation by Councilmember Loretano. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Lord, as we have just finished this Thanksgiving weekend, let us take a moment to give thanks. Thanks to our citizens, thanks to those that protect us here and abroad and overseas. Thanks for the families and friends that we all share. And as we end 2011 and go to 2012, we hope that you can help us see that shining light and again make those good and wise decisions that will help our city, our country, and our world thrive. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. There are no expenditures to ratify this evening, and we did have one communication item, but that has been canceled due to personal reasons. So I gather, Joanne, that'll be on a later agenda with your youth group. So,
Thank you.
So the next item will be citizens' comments and appearances from the floor. Do we have any?
I do not have any cards.
You do not have any. All right. Oh, absolutely. So as yes, could you get your card, please? Thank you.
I can respond. Thanks.
Now she takes the card to the city clerk. I'd like to read this. Council will listen to comments and may take any one of the following remarks. First of all, respond to criticism. So if there's criticism, the council may respond or city manager. 2, request the staff investigation and report on the matter. And 3, request the matter be scheduled on a future agenda. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. The yellow light and buzzer will let you know you have 30 seconds left to speak. Before you begin, speak, identify yourself clearly, stating for the record your name and your address.
Just 1 second.
You have take a moment. It's fine.
Good evening. Nancy McFellin, Australia Mountain Ranch.
Move that down a little bit so you don't have to
I
get on your
wish you would
tiptoes.
get a microphone and a podium
Well,
for
there
short
now.
people.
I know. Well, now that bent down, you're fine.
I spoke at the last city
Nancy,
council
just
meeting.
give your name and address.
Didn't I do that?
Did you do
weren't
it?
speaking into the mic, Nancy.
Nancy McFellin, Australia Mountain Ranch resident.
Thank you.
Before I go into my further concerns, I want to point out, along with some of the other mistakes that are being made by the city of Goodyear, the amended agenda date is wrong. It should say 11/28. It says 11/23.
The date that's under the amended agenda is the date that it's amended. We amended it on the 23rd.
But is this for this evening?
Well, the top of the agenda still says November 28th, but we amended the agenda. We wanted the public to know it was amended on the 23rd.
That's okay, but we still need the correct date of the meeting.
It's on the top of the agenda, in bold,
I don't see it.
4th line down.
Oh, okay, very top. Okay, I'll take that one back.
Well, that's okay. Sometimes I miss that.
Yeah. When I left here,
Yeah, start our time again. Thank you.
yeah, start my, thank you. When I spoke at the last council meeting, I shared my concerns with you. So I went home that evening, and apparently there was a new report, an MCSO report and a DPS report, and communication with the AG's office. So I requested that under public records that evening. And I believe that was the 14th. And I didn't hear anything until today. And I did receive communication that my reports were ready, and that the fact that it was going to be $97 and 194 pages. So I questioned 194 94 pages. I said, I want the unabridged version of this, not the selective version. And I said, it just seems like an incomplete report. Well, I was responded back, and I was assured that no, it was the completed report, and that I had what we needed to contain. The DPS report was 9 pages long. The MCSO report was 184, and the Attorney General's letter or conversation was 1 page. Well, then my question to you is, why do I have the actual DPS report that's 530 pages? And here it is. Have council members seen it? Have you read it? Are you aware of what it says? Along with the other 700-page report that I spoke of at the last city council meeting is with me tonight. Have the council members read it? And what input do you have on it? There is no transparency in the city. There is one cover-up after another. The citizens are entitled to transparency. I am requesting that all of this be put on the website for all the taxpayers to view and make their own decisions. You are an elected officials. You are sworn, you took an oath. You need to stand up and do what's right. Thank you.
No other cards.
No other cards? So this is not a direct criticism to individuals, but as a general, as a council, does anybody have any comments they would like to make at this point? City manager?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, will you be addressing the request of this individual?
I will at a future council meeting.
Okay, all right.
Madam Mayor, I would like to understand the difference between how many pages she's saying one report is and what was given, and I would like an explanation for that, please.
Certainly.
Yeah, well, I would think each of the question that she asked, there should be some explanation on each of those questions.
I will certainly do that.
Okay?
And I will forward my communication back and forth from the public request. And I would also like to meet Mr. Petrovsky. I appreciate the letter that you sent me. I appreciate Parrish sending me the actual letter, but I would like to meet the man because I think he's a thinker. And I'd like to be amongst him because I think he's very ethical.
Then I put this to the lawyer because that was sent to me on an email, and I shared, we had a conversation, I shared that with Nancy, so I sent it to her. I did a copy of the letter, and I had Parrish send it to her. So do I have to call him to find this out, or is it public information? I'm just putting that out.
Typically, we do not distribute personal identifying information under public records disclosures.
Well,
because there is a privacy interest for individuals.
So
I would appreciate you giving my number to him.
If I called him and gave Ms. McMillan's number to them, is that within the guideline?
You could do that.
Okay.
I'd like to request it. Thank you.
I'll Okay. So let's go on to the consent agenda. If I could have the city clerk please read the consent agenda items A through D by title only.
Item A, approve draft minutes of a special meeting held on November 7th, 2011. Item B, accept the dedication of a right-of-way and public utility easement by Arizona Galvanizing, Inc., an Arizona corporation, for a portion of the South Side Elwood Street, approximately 1/4 mile west of Estrella Parkway. Item C, adopt Resolution 11-1453, approving and authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Avondale relating to transit services, providing for an effective date. Item D, renew the City Council's previous policy on military supplemental pay and benefits for activated military employees to be effective beginning November 28, 2011, and sunset November 28, 2013.
Thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Does anyone wish on the council to remove an item from the consent?
Thank you, Mayor.
Is it just information, or you want it removed?
Information.
All right. And which one?
Oh, it is Number D is in dog.
Okay.
I just want to comment, if I may.
Yes, you may.
I was present when the mayor of Phoenix commented that his city was the only one that did certain things for the military who were called up on active duty. And in checking with our city manager, Goodyear does it as well. And we have a wonderful policy. And I
So
thank you for
the
bringing
press
it
is,
forward.
I think the press is here tonight, so if the press will note that Goodyear. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it
Madam
forward.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to comment on this. Is there a reason why we could not extend this so that it to June of 2013, so it coincides with our budget year, and just do it on every 2 years with the budget?
City manager?
I don't see any reason. We can certainly check on that. I would just extend it.
So are we saying we're going to,
I'm gonna pull it and then just make a
All right.
recommendation.
All right.
A revised motion that is
sure.
go. I don't think we. Let's pull it and discuss it.
Sure. That's fine. That's item C, wasn't it?
No, D.
D, okay. All right, then can I have a motion, please, for items A through C, please?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
I hear a first by Councilman Stipp and a second by Councilman Pizzillo. Roll call?
Vice Mayor Osborne,
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano,
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell,
Aye.
Councilmember Gelzer,
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp,
Aye.
Mayor Lord.
Aye.
It passes 7-0.
Thank you. So now we'll have discussion on D. And Mr. Gelzer, would you like to start that discussion?
My feeling is, as a former military officer who actually got paid when I went on active duty by my employer, that this is a good policy. Councilwoman Loretano asked me, why don't we just make this an indefinite policy, and I can live with that. And I guess I had asked Ms. Reddy if she'd come up, and since it's her item, if she'd come up and enlighten us for a few minutes.
Mayor Lord, council members, it's up to you. In the past, we've renewed this every 2 years, and we kept with that process. If you'd like to make it indefinite, we would definitely be open for that.
Do you think the public might have a different view on this from time to time? I throw that out to you. So
I just think, obviously, if it's indefinite, we could always come back and change it, but it seems like unnecessary. I can't imagine us saying we don't want to support the people who are risking their lives for us. So I would.
It was interesting because during Vietnam they did. So
I'm sorry, I was really little. I understand.
As a military wife, I have to tell you, it was definitely.
And I understand. I do remember that on TV when I was little.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean it that way. But I remember that, and and I remember the Iraq War. The first one was so much of a change. Yeah. But I think the times have changed. I think people are very supportive of the men and women, whether they agree with the policy. I think we should support the people who are out there.
I have no issue with it, but I felt for the public that I needed to bring it up, that there are diverse opinions out there, and there still continues to be on the military, although at this period of time it's very high, and I appreciate that as a military wife. So, yes, Mr. Stipp.
Why is this coming before us? I get why we're seeing it now, but this seems to be an administrative function, more of a personnel rule that we're going to continue to pay folks while they're out there. So
I think it's a policy issue.
I'm in support of making this indefinite. I think we owe a lot to our folks in the military.
Mayor Lord,
Yes.
Councilmember Stipp, this was something that wasn't in our employee manual, and when 9/11 happened, we felt it was necessary, and so this was something that was put in place, and we didn't know how long it was going to be necessary, so we made it for 2 years, and then it sunset, and then we made it for 2 more years, and so we've been bringing it back probably 5 times, and if it's something that we want to make ongoing, then it could be something that could be put in the employee policy manual if that's your recommendation.
It's very difficult to predict conflict. and wars.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
It's very common to have this in policy statements by cities around the country, so it's nothing unusual.
So an indefinite
Yes.
date is fine. Okay. So then I,
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve item number 11-4696, the City Council policy on military supplemental pay and benefits for activated military employees with an indefinite conclusion.
do I hear a second on that?
Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Gelser and a second by Councilman Stiff. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Gilzer?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Osborne?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you. All right, there has been a change on the business item. We have moved item D to be the first item under business, since we do have a number of out-of-town guests, and we wanted to show them how gracious we are in Goodyear. So we're going to start with that. So what we're doing on D is we're considering a job creation and training agreement with Dick's Sporting Goods, and Paul Ilardo will present.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. It's a great pleasure to be standing before you to talk about the fact that tonight we're asking you to approve and adopt a development agreement between the City of Goodyear and Project Green, and I want to say that now Project Green is Dick's Sporting Goods, of which I think everyone has heard of Dick's Sporting Goods. And they're planning to build their warehouse facility for their West Coast distribution center for their retail sporting goods in Goodyear. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce our guests, all of which were at our first meeting in July when we met. We called that our memorable cookie jar meeting. Dick's was started by his grandmother giving him funds out of the cookie jar, so we thought it appropriate to give Dick's a cookie jar at that meeting. And so I think they all remember it as the famous cookie jar meeting. So I'd like to introduce our guests. First, on the far left, from the three people are from Dick's Sporting Goods. We have Tony Tieppo, who's the project manager of supply chain, and George Giacova, who is the vice president of distribution and strategy. And we're very glad your strategy was to come to Goodyear. And then Tyler Bronson, who's director of distribution strategy and support. Chris Bjornson is with Jones Lang LaSalle out of Chicago, and our own Tony Lydon, Jones Lang LaSalle, who is the local broker. In this case, we have been negotiating with Dick's for the past 5 months since that July meeting, as they were deciding where they were going to locate. They've looked around the country, particularly we were competing with Nevada on this project. And we felt it was one that would give great benefit to our citizens. I know in the COAC you've seen the benefits, but I'd like to go over them a bit so that people watching on the internet will know. First of all, Dick's is going to do ground-up construction of a facility over 600,000 square feet, and also a LEED-certified building. By building and owning the land and owning the building, they are going to be a much longer-term corporate partner than companies that come out and say lease for 5-7 years. So this is the type of company that we welcome to be a corporate partner long-term. Merit Partners is their development agent. Oh, I didn't introduce Kevin Zerwinski. I'm so sorry. Kevin is in the back row, and he's with Merit Partners. I'm sorry, Kevin. They will be building the off-sites, and therefore, as a part of what they're doing is building a 3-mile-long water line all the way from Falcon Drive to the east, all the way west across 303 to the Dick's facility, which is necessary for its operation. By doing this, that's really important infrastructure for the North Goodyear area and will help bring other companies into our area as well. So the infrastructure is very important. That's why this is a job creation and infrastructure agreement. Palm Valley 303 is the perfect location for this kind of distribution facility. They have bought enough land to build up to a 1 million square foot facility. So we welcome that size of facility right there along Loop 303. And as a real high-profile national retailer, we think that Dick's will help bring attention to that area and help it grow and stimulate development as well. Plus, by having Sub-Zero out there and Dick's, it's now creating sort of a mass that starts looking more like a business park and will create more attention and we think be another catalyst for business. Building and equipping this facility will bring in at least $55 million capital investment into our city. So that will make a big difference in sales tax for the city. Also, the ground-up construction will create a total of 625 construction jobs in total, with total direct, indirect, and induced payroll of about $87 million. Dick's itself is expected to bring in approximately 300 jobs, about 120 at opening, 150 within the total of Phase 1, and another 150 if they expand into Phase 2 and add on to the facility. By doing that, they will also bring in about $1.8 million worth of direct revenues to the city of Goodyear. Also, as a part of this agreement, we're definitely encouraging Dick's to hire Goodyear residents by giving them job creation incentives only for the hiring of Goodyear residents, and also for the purchase of new and resale homes, as council has requested. In total, there's the direct that we said the $1.8 million in direct sales tax and all kinds of taxes that they pay to the city. In total, they will bring in and generate about $264.9 million in total economic benefit to the area over a 10-year period. And that's based upon the money that Dick's pays out to their employees, the money that they pay to their vendors, and their vendors then pay to their employees, and all of the induced or the household spending by those employees of Dick's and all the people that benefit from their spending. So it's like that ripple effect in the water, we call it, the total economic benefit. They also are going to take advantage of an FTZ, which again brings attention to the foreign trade zones in Goodyear and the value that they bring to the companies that locate here. So I think that's a great deal of benefit to the community. And in order to receive the incentives that we are offering, they need to perform in the following manner. They have to commence their operations within 120 days of the effective date of this agreement, which is tonight. They have to build the 3-mile-long water line according to city development requirements. They have to gain at least a temporary certificate of occupancy by December of 2012. They must invest at least $55 million in investment over a 3-year period from the date of this agreement. They also need to operate their facility for a minimum period of 5 years from obtaining their certificate of occupancy. And over the course of 3 years, they need to hire at least 150 full-time employees, paying them a minimum of $12.50 an hour, including overtime, and average about $31,000 in average payroll per year. Dick's also has agreed to contract to Goodyear Hotels for at least 80% of their annually budgeted room nights, which we thank them for. In exchange, we agree to support them in their FTZ status. Now, they are going into an FTZ magnet site, which basically you as council have already approved. We are going to pay them a maximum of up to $500,000 for the off-site improvements that they're putting in, which would include that water line, which will help bring other businesses to the city as well. We will waive a maximum of $400,000 in the plan and permit fees in Phase 1, and then should they do the expansion within 5 years, then we would also waive $250,000 worth of permit fees on Phase 2. In addition, we're offering them a maximum of $320,000 for job creation credits for employees. One employee would be worth $3,000 if they're employed for 2 years. Also, if they purchase a home within Goodyear, that would be worth $3,000 to them. All those would add up to, and they can, they prove to us that those employees have been on staff for that length of time, or they've had a total number of employees that add to that base. Goodyear residents only, in order to get these job credits, and the purchase of a Goodyear home that they've lived in for at least 1 year, and then we would give them the credit for $3,000, or give them $3,000 reimbursement. So their direct benefit is worth $820,000, and the other is waiving fees of $400,000 in Phase 1, $250,000 in Phase 2. Are there any questions?
So,
Do you need to open it up first? Or?
oh, yeah, let's make the motion first, and then we'll
Okay.
open for discussion.
Mayor, would you like me to read the resolution?
Yes, please.
Adopt Resolution 11-1460, approving and authorizing the city manager to execute job creation and infrastructure agreement for Dick's Sporting Goods, Inc., and providing for an effective date.
Fine, and I think I need to ask for speaker cards before I do the.
There aren't
We
any.
don't have any. All right, thank you. Do I hear a motion, please? In a
So
second?
moved.
Second.
I heard a motion from Councilwoman Campbell and a second from Vice Mayor Osborne. So, open for discussion?
Bless you.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
go ahead, Joe. You can start.
The net benefit, I know you threw a lot of numbers out there, and I know the construction is about $33 million, and you had the off-sites at a certain amount. What is the net benefit to the city coffers-wise, tax?
$1,848,970.
could you say that again and pull that microphone down just a little bit?
$1,848,970.
Okay, that's
over a
net
10-year period.
over a 10-year. That's the net benefit to the
Right.
city. Okay, and if it was 5 years, because that's the minimum, it would be what, half of that? Would that be
No,
fair?
it's front-loaded.
It's front-loaded, so it'd be more than half of that. Any idea what the 5 would be, Paula?
Let me see if I
Because the 5 is
Just
the
a
worst
minute.
case scenario.
have to add. Okay, 913, 60, 292, 88,000, 86,000. Can you add that? Anybody?
About
have that?
1.2 million, somewhere around there.
Could be, yeah.
That's
It's
my-
definitely front-loaded.
That's my math
'Cause
calculation.
the most of it is under construction sales tax. That's
I
why
know.
there's
That's
it's
right up front.
So front-loaded.
Okay. Other just comments I want to welcome, and I'm sure you're going to hear more of that from the rest of the council members that welcome you here. I would hope maybe your marketing individual might consider maybe a little corner of the shop, retail, just to spread the word, because I'd love for you, once the mall goes open, to find a spot there at our mall when it comes into place. So maybe a little precursor would be a little retail shop there.
I need to address that. Or Sir John could.
Oh.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Pizzillo, I just want to let you know that the underlying zoning is light industrial, and it doesn't allow retail there.
Okay.
Secondly, the property is in the APZ2 zone, so it doesn't allow general retail. That's the air flyover, even though it does allow offices. And the site does not have enough parking to add a retail component.
Okay.
And we're hopeful that Dick's will be over in the mall anyway.
Okay. Well, it was a shot. Thank you.
Any other questions for me? And then
I have
someone from Dick's will
questions.
Vice Mayor
come up
Husband.
and speak to you.
Yes, I have a few questions. Thank you. Truly, this is a business decision, and I'm excited that we have this opportunity to discuss this. Joe did hit on a couple of my questions. Yes, it's front-loaded. I appreciate that. Let's see, because a couple of these went on what you just answered. And you mentioned that in that ESI report, 264 million was industrial output. So that would be, as you said, a ripple effect, I would assume, just for the entire state, really, not just, for our
Yes,
cities.
they say for the area, but it depends upon how large the area is. Vendors can be in the state, vendors can be, some of them can be out of state in the area.
Okay. As for the job credits, explain to me, will this allow us to receive back from the state reimbursement for those job credits? How does that work?
No, we're calling them job credits. It has nothing to do with the state.
It has nothing to do with what the state had.
We've just decided in this case we would give them a credit for a Goodyear resident that has been employed for at least 3 months at the facility. So if one person is employed with a maximum of $3,000, so they have to have 8 credits before we will reimburse them the $3,000. So it's either one person who's worked for 2 whole years, or if they have hired someone and they have left, we will still give them a credit. Say someone worked only 3 months, we will give them a credit because they did hire a Goodyear resident who worked there for 3 months. So it's the total of credits that they present to us that equal 8 credits for Goodyear residents, and then they will be reimbursed $3,000, and they'll only be reimbursed on an annual basis. So it's based upon how many people within a year's time have received that they've hired from that standpoint.
On the infrastructure, the 3 miles of infrastructure, if that was something that we would have done as a city, put together, what would that cost us? Any ballpark idea?
Kevin, would you be able to answer that?
The public infrastructure improvements that are associated with this project, as Paula mentioned, stretching from Falcon down to where the site's at, including the road, we're estimating to exceed 2.5 million.
25 million?
2.5 million. 2.5 million. Yeah. So there's
2.5.
improvements to Cotton Lane. There's a water line, of course, and the other improvements that will not only serve where Dix is at, but also serve from Falcon Drive over to the 303, and then, of course, in that industrial park where they're locating as well. Some of those other lots will also receive that benefit.
Is that Goodyear water, or is that Liberty water?
No, it's not our water service area.
Thank you.
Yes. Liberty.
Any other?
I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry, Joanne, I
not
thought you were done.
Well, I haven't had a chance to talk to anybody about this, so I have a few questions. And one of the things that was pointed out that reimbursement-wise, if they did not reach the more or less a 5-year mark on either the amount of employees being hired, I mean, they're given 5 years to reach that beyond. Help me out with that a little bit. It's kind of looking like, or they are giving 2 more years beyond the 3. Is that what it is? And then they have to reimburse up to 100%.
Once we give them notice that they have not reached the point of hiring enough people, then they would have to return some of the reimbursements that we have given them already.
So basically, Joanne, what we're saying is most of the, Vice Mayor, what they base this on is performance-based, and these are clawbacks. So these are, these set standards that if they don't do what they said they were going to do within the time frame, then we do not give the incentives out.
Well, I understand, but some of the incentives will already have been given. And so, I was just questioning that, in a sense, we're front-loading what we are doing, and we're giving them extra time beyond a contracted time to have to pay back 100% if they don't make it. So I just wanted to feel better about that.
Is that included
This
the
is a 7-year.
extension?
This is a 7-year agreement.
Does that include the extension time? I mean, for the expansion?
Expansion needs to occur within 5 years of.
5 years.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. That could be within that expansion time frame.
And for instance, if they have not cumulatively hired 150 new people within the first 42 months, after the date of final occupancy, then they're obliged to return 25% of the job funding received from the city. And then if it's within 48, they haven't achieved it in 48 months, and they have to return 50%. In 54 months, it goes up to 75, and then if they haven't achieved it after 60 months, they have to return 100%.
Okay, my last technical question, I guess, is in comparison, I don't know the total difference between what Macy's does and what Dick's would be proposed to do. From what I understand, if a Macy's came to our mall, we would be able to receive sales tax from that distribution center of Macy's. Would that still occur with Dick's if Dick's came to our mall?
You're talking online?
Yeah, but I guess that's the difference. That's what I don't know the difference between what you will be doing.
This is not an internet fulfillment center.
It's
like
not a
Macy's
fulfillment,
is.
so it's strictly
a distribution center
trucks.
of goods to support 160 stores they have in the western region
so
right
then
now.
that won't matter. Okay.
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, I didn't quite follow that. It will pay sales taxes because there's other Dicks in the state already. There's a nexus. There's a nexus in the state.
But it's not the exact same as being a fulfillment center, though. That was really more the question.
Macy's is doing internet fulfillment only. This is hard goods. Store goods sold to the stores.
Well, I think this is an excellent opportunity for Goodyear. I believe that this is, a business decision that the council can make, just like what we did with Macy's, that did bring us Amazon, that did bring us SunTech. It's not that we're a city only of distribution centers, but you know what? We're a magnet for a great logistics area, and I applaud you for recognizing that in our little town, and I'm excited that you're coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Yes, Councilman Loretano.
First, I do want to welcome you all as well, and we look forward to having you. I think there's some intangibles that we need to also let the public know. One I see as a big intangible is when the public sees something, especially in this economy, being built from the ground up, especially such a large facility as this, I think will have a lot of positive impact on that area. And could you address what other intangibles, even if you don't have amounts, that you can expect so the public listening can hear that? Because you did give a lot of numbers. Where else can Goodyear benefit?
Some of the intangibles that I addressed were the fact that right now 303 is potentially one of our largest employment areas in the city. And right now we have Sub-Zero sitting there, a single building. So you don't notice that it's a huge business park right now. When you get a facility that's 1.5 times the size of Sub-Zero sitting just north of it, that starts to show mass and the fact that you truly have a business park. It has already attracted other people. We're already showing land in other areas to large facilities as well. So, and also the fact that they are building a facility here versus companies that come in and lease a facility for 5 or 7 years. That means in 5 or 7 years they can just go. Now, when a company makes an investment, they buy the land and they build their own facility, then that's a much more long-term commitment to a community. And Dick's is known to be a good corporate partner and have charities, and they do participate in the communities that they're in. So, and also a name like Dick's is so recognizable that when someday when Sub-Zero has a sign, and Dick's wants their sign out there, so when you see those names right there on the 303, they'll be very recognizable, and will also help attract other companies that come into the city. And so that's a lot more jobs. The number one thing I think right now is the infrastructure that they're going to bring, because when they're paying up front for all this infrastructure, which then other companies will come in and reimburse them for. I mean, it's a part of the agreement normally, but it will, by having the infrastructure there, then that means that the companies can come a lot faster than they would otherwise. So it's a very meaningful project for our city.
Thank you. Great job.
Any other comments?
Yeah,
Councilman Stipp?
certainly like to welcome Dick's. Thank you for choosing our city. We are very excited to have you. As the newest member on council to hear Project Green had no idea what we were talking about until we got a little farther down the road. But it was great news when we heard that you finally made your selection. So welcome and thank you.
Councilman Campbell.
Thank you. I have one question, just a clarifying question. The total employment at the onset.
At the onset, they expect to have 120 by the time they open at the beginning of 2013.
Okay.
And with 150 is our requirement for within phase one, which could be over a 3-year period.
Okay. And do we have an idea of when we could expect them to have their plans to go before planning and zoning?
The plans are already coming into the city.
They're already ready. Okay. And my next question is the traffic on 303 with the truck. I'm assuming since this is going to be a very large distribution center, we will expect many trucks, 20, 30, 40, I guess, a day. I don't know how many they're going to have.
Many trucks a day.
And the 303 with wherever they're going to place their building will be just fine. No problems getting on and off 303.
Well, while 303 is under construction, there are detours that they will have to follow. But then once the 303 is finished, then yes, there's no problem. They will be instantly on the 303 and can get to I-10 very, very rapidly. That's why the 303 corridor is so valuable to the city and will eventually be such a large employment corridor. Palm Valley 303 is a 1,600-acre mixed-use employment park, and so it will be one of the world-class premier parks and be a huge employer in our city.
Well, it's
eventually.
wonderful that we'll have so much activity out there, and then the public will be able to see really how much they do and how busy they are. But I do want to welcome you, and I will tell you that if you need sporting goods and Dick doesn't have it, it's not made. I have been at your store many times, and we're just so delighted you're here in Goodyear, and we look forward to working with you as a community partner.
Any other comments? Well, I would just like to thank you. You've been a delightful group. You have a proud history of how the company began. I was privileged to be part of that presentation. I just feel like you've shown confidence in Goodyear by the building of the water line, that in your mind you know that this Palm Valley 301 is going to expand. Did I just say 301? 303, thank you. I thought that's what I said. And it's going to expand, so that shows that we're on the road to progress in this area. That's a lot of acreage to fill, and I think we're going to fill it sooner than we had anticipated. And then secondly, I want to thank the economic development. And I know people say sometimes, hey, it's their job. But I was a witness to the extra job you took and your staff in doing these presentations and caring about a team of people that came into our city. So, Paul, I thank you and your team for all the time and effort that you put into it.
We had a great day.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Can I ask George to come up and speak?
Yes, yes. In fact, Councilman Vice Mayor Osborne wanted to have them come up and talk, so.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, Paul. I think Paula did a great job explaining our company and what we're doing. As everyone said, a lot of work went into choosing this site for this distribution center. This will be our fourth building that we're building to support our strategic growth that we're doing in our company, and this will support the western part of the United States. And really, we visited with a lot of municipalities, a lot of different areas of the country out this way to choose this site. It's been going on for a while, and really, just hands down, we really enjoyed the Goodyear team. Really, they did put a lot of effort into it and spent time with us to go through the different parts of the project with us, understand what we were trying to do, who we were. I'm glad a lot of people know who we are, Dick's Sporting Goods. It's a great company. But really, it's just the business-friendly climate. The quality of the workforce out here is just second to none. And really, just Mayor Lord, you and your staff have done a great job convincing us to come here. So we're very excited to build our fourth building, and it's going to be quite a facility when it's done. I think it's going to be a great place to work. So We thank you and to the City Council, too, for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one question for you.
Questions?
I do have one question for you. Okay, because this is a state that has been hit hard in the construction field, you just mentioned that you are on, this would be the fourth building.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have teams of builders and contractors that you bring with you, or will you be using Arizona companies?
We use everybody here. We don't bring teams. This is kind of the team right here.
All right.
But no, we have a lot of confidence in the groups that have been kind of presented to us to help us with the facility. So yeah, no,
Good.
we're very excited about it.
That made me feel good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you again for
Thank
your time.
you. All right, since discussion is finished, we'll have roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell? Aye. Councilmember Gilzer?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Osborne?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
And with that, we can officially welcome you to the city of Goodyear.
Thank you.
All right, we ready for the next? Thank you, gentlemen. Now we'll go to item A. We will consider adopting Ordinance 1250, amending the development fees in Chapter 9, Section 8, Article 3 of the Goodyear City Code. And Joe Schmidt to present. Joe?
Mayor, council members, happy belated Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
I'll be brief. I heard that's important. This Ordinance 1250 is the ordinance for the development impact fee revisions that were necessitated by the adoption of Senate Bill 1525. You've previously had a work session on this where you were told that Governor signed the bill in April. It's made substantial changes to the impact fee regulations, and there are two compliance dates. One is in January 1st coming up, and that's the one we're addressing tonight. And then the second one would be August 1st of 2014, and we'll have a little bit of time to work on addressing that. To start off with, we engaged Tischler Buys, who is the company that did the original impact fee study for us, to evaluate the impact of the legislation. And we asked ourselves, should the fees stay or should they be discontinued? And after analyzing the pros and cons, it was determined that there are limited resources available to us to fund much needed improvements that respond to growth. And so discontinuing the fees would mean a loss of substantial revenue that we didn't feel we could afford. So it was staff's recommendation to continue assessing the fees as outlined in the analysis. The legislation resulted in elimination of certain fees. First, 3 of the 12 impact fee categories: general government, public works, and reclaimed water, although it wasn't specifically eliminated, but it wasn't specifically named in the legislation. But since it's a component of wastewater disposal, we have combined it with the wastewater development fee, so that fee has not been lost. Monies collected prior to elimination must be spent prior to January 1st, 2020, and qualifying improvements must already be in the infrastructure improvement plan, which is part of our development impact fee study. The library fee has been restricted in that it can only be used to fund up to 10,000 square feet of a library. No equipment, computers, books, vehicles, or other appurtenances may be funded. And due to those restrictions, staff had originally recommended discontinuing this fee. However, after the work session on November 7th, it was the consensus of the council that we should continue the library fees because it is a citizen priority. So the ordinance you have before you tonight has that fee included in it. Most of the fee categories will decrease, primarily because development fees can't be used for administrative services or training facilities for police and fire.
It also cannot be used for equipment, vehicles, or other appurtenances for all categories except police and fire. So full compliance will be pursued prior to August 1st or August 1st of 2014. There are some new wrinkles in the legislation that will have to be addressed in the impact fee study done to develop a fee schedule. Excess construction sales tax has to be considered in the new development fee calculations. And before adoption of the proposed or updated land use assumptions, the city will need to appoint an advisory committee or an auditor to advise, review, and monitor the plan. So among the staff recommendations are that we adopt new fees for the Sonoran Valley area, but for now we suspend the fees indefinitely. If we continue to collect fees, the city will be liable for building infrastructure in that area and face reimbursing the fees collected if they're not spent in a timely manner. We feel that once a developer is ready to initiate development, then the city can reinstate the fees. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the staff is recommending continuing assessing the library development fee based on council input. This gives you an example of a kind of a side-by-side comparison of what a single-family residence would pay. This one's referred to as the North Zone, although this would be the area north of I-10 because most of the residential areas north of I-10 are not provided with utility service by the city, so you can see that the utility categories are blanked out there. So for a typical single-family home north of I-10, the impact fee total currently is $5,553. It would drop to $3,104, a decrease of almost over 44%. To $3,104. In the area south of I-10, north of Patterson Road, the current fee is $15,198, and that includes utilities. And it would drop to $12,434, a reduction of 19%, $2,700 fewer than or less than what it is currently. It also affects commercial development. This is an example of retail at 3,000 square feet. Again, this is the area north of I-10 where we don't have utilities. This one will vary a little bit because there are some areas where we do serve water. There are some areas where we do serve sewer and not water. But without the utilities considered, you can see that that total on that chart is nowhere near right. Moving along, I didn't do the charts. I did some of the charts. That example didn't work. I apologize. This is a summary for all of the areas within the city, separated out from north of I-10 where we don't generally have utilities, north of I-10 where we have sewer only, south of I-10 and north of the Gila River, which is generally the same as the balance of the city from the Gila River to Patterson Road, with the exception of the regional transportation fee, which varies by those subzones. And then we have the area south of Patterson Road, which is basically the Sonoran Valley area. So these side-by-side comparisons give you a feel for what the difference is for a single-family home. Based on the current rate of development, which is about 600 single-family homes a year, the net effect of the change in development fees would be about $1.5 million annually, based on where development is currently being constructed. With that, I conclude my presentation. I do need to point out to you that in the ordinance we have one correction. In section 19, it reads that the section is deleted in its entirety when it should read, it's amended to read as follows. So just a minor Scribner correction. So hopefully the clerk will note that, and I understand it's been corrected and re-uploaded on the T drive. So with that, I conclude my presentation and stand for any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. Is there any speaker cards on that?
No.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to ask the city clerk to read the ordinance by title only, please.
Ordinance 11-1250, amending Chapter 9, Article 8 of the Goodyear City Code by amending Sections 9-8-3, A1, A2, B1, B2, C, D1, D2, E1, E2, F1, F2, G1, G2, H1, H2, I1, I2, J1, J2, K1, K2, L1, L2, and M to replace its development fees that were adopted prior to January 1, 2012 with development fees adopted pursuant to the requirements of Arizona Revised Statute Section 9-463.05 as amended by the state legislature in Senate Bill 1525, which was signed into law by Governor Jan Brewer on April 26, 2011, suspending indefinitely the assessment and collection of the development fees applicable to the area south of Patterson Road until the mayor and council finds that urban development of the area is likely in the foreseeable future, providing for separability and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Could I hear a motion, please?
So moved.
A motion by Councilman Stiff. Do I hear a second?
Second.
A second by Councilman Gelser. Open for council discussion. Councilman Stiff?
I promised I wouldn't do this, but I just want to say how disturbing it is that the state thinks they know what we need best. And this is a great example of that. There are so many city services that we are going to have to, or not services rather, but facilities and operations that our citizens have expected from us that we are now going to have to either eliminate or greatly reduce. And it's a shame that the state felt it necessary to do this, not only to us as a city, but to all of our residents.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Osborne?
Actually, I had a question. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Mr. Stipp. Within your community benefit, you did mention that the city has approximately $61 million in development fee related obligations to be paid to the private sector. So that's current, that we still have $61 million in related fees?
Vice Mayor Osborne, that's my understanding, that those are improvements that have already been made that are subject to reimbursement through collection of impact fees.
Those are credits, Joanne. We don't write checks.
You don't have them.
They're just credits.
They're credits.
Okay.
When somebody builds a house, they get a
Okay.
credit for...
That's what I was concerned about, because I was worried that now with the lack of impact fees coming in, that it would put off that and that we'd have a sunset on credits. I didn't know. Okay, that was my only question.
Okay.
I guess we could ask the question, do we really have to accept this? Can we just say no?
Yes.
We're going to be rebels? All right.
I think not. Councilman Gelser?
I so wish I could vote against this. When I moved to Goodyear in 2000 and I first started coming to council meetings, one of the holy grails of Goodyear and all the cities around us was development pays for itself. So for all the 65,000 people here who live here in Goodyear now, you are going to be paying, you paid $2,500 more than every new person that moves in. Because, and I'm surprised that the Arizona Home Builders Association aren't here to celebrate their great victory. I am so disgusted with the state legislature for putting this burden upon us, basically denying us the ability to be a great city. Excuse me, they are creating impediments for us to be a great city. We will be a great city in spite of them. I wish I could vote against this, but I will markedly say to all future developers on the record, if I don't see $2,500 worth of goodies thrown in, I'm probably not going to be supporting your project in the future. Thank you.
Yes, Councilman Loretano.
I would kind of echo the sentiment. I am disappointed in the legislature. This should be a city issue, how we spend our funds and what we spend them on, especially because, you know, if there are cities that were abusing it, that's a shame. It's kind of like a couple bad apples might have ruined it for everyone. Goodyear has never abused it. We've done nice parks for the whole community. I would like to look at workarounds, and I was a little snide when I was talking about, library 1, library 2, but there's no reason why you can't do some of these projects in phases, and you can get the same thing. It might just take longer to get there. Phase in a park, and you can call them 4 different parks. But I really think we should look at some of the workarounds, because I think some of those amenities, people bought houses and came here looking for some of those amenities. I think we should strive to do what we can and do hold some of the builders as they come in, as the economy approves, to help us maintain some of those, even if they're not through impact fees.
Thank you.
I
Councilman
just
Campbell?
want, thank you. I just want to add my sentiments. It is a sad day for Goodyear. It's a sad day for all of the cities in Arizona that we're no longer going to be able to provide some of the amenities that so many of us have taken for granted, because when someone comes into a new community, they look for schools, they look for parks, they look for swimming pools, they look for activities, and unfortunately, we're not going to have those amenities within our individual neighborhoods. I am hopeful that after 3 years of this being in effect, because I know we cannot do anything about it for 2 years, that there will be a revision of this, and folks will rise to the occasion to say that they don't want this anymore. Thank you.
Councilman Basillo?
I just echo the sentiments we've heard here. I mean, we constantly hear from the state. They're very disappointed in the federal government getting involved in their business, but they do the same thing with us. And this, to me, is something that should be at the city side. And unfortunately, I believe it's going to have negative repercussions as we start growing the city, especially one that has a lot left to build. So, and I also appreciate you putting the library back in there. But I wish the state would be working more for, in our interest instead of against us most of the time. Thank you.
I have a couple questions. Talking to some of the other mayors in the city, different cities, they're looking at this fee is a little differently. Example, like what they're going to do about libraries. So as we go on, we pass this, and as we progress and we see what other cities are doing, and the expression getting away with, or their interpretation of what the law says. Are we going to be monitoring that? Because one of the examples is libraries. So isn't that true? Have you heard about some of the other cities and how they're looking at this?
Mayor, Lord, council members, yes, we've heard other cities taking
different stance.
Positions than we had taken previously. I think we're in line with several of the other cities now by including the fee in the manner we did.
But we will, at our monthly meetings, keep track of how all of the other cities are performing.
Let's do that, because some of them are interpreting it from a more positive attitude for their city than we are. So I would like that monitored.
We sure will, Madam Mayor.
The other thing I want to make it clear with council, and especially since Councilman Loretano made this mention about Goodyear has been such a good citizen, we were accused of being part of this. The Home Builders Association used Goodyear's name. So I want you to know that. And I did address that with our legislature. I asked a couple individuals, why didn't you call one of us? We all have our numbers published, and I don't think any of you heard from anybody. And I was at the legislature working on this, trying to prevent some of this happening. And nobody asked me that question while I was down there. So I just want you to keep that in mind as we progress and you talk to your different representatives. You might want to bring that up to them. Let me see, I've got that one and got that one. So with that, we'll do a roll call vote.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Gilzer?
A reluctant aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Reluctantly, aye.
Vice Mayor Osborne?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
I have to make this remark. That was the vice mayor's pause that she makes when she's unhappy with something.
Yes. I was about to be the rebel.
Yeah, okay.
Without a cause. Right.
So we'll go on to item B. We will now consider approving the appointment process for the city Goodyear boards, commissions, and committees. Then Mulhall will present.
Mayor Lord, council members, you discussed the appointment process for boards, commissions, and committees at the November 14th work session, and staff is recommending that you adopt that formal process this evening. In addition, We request that you appoint a subcommittee for appointments to boards, commissions, and committees that would be effective immediately and term out in June of 2012. And then at that time, you would either reappoint the same members or appoint a new subcommittee. There are two boards that recently advertised for vacancies, and both boards, the application process closed in October, and they are very eager to have this subcommittee review those applications and go through the interviews and make a formal appointment to council. And that's it. If any questions?
We'll see in a moment here. Are there any speaker cards?
No.
You happen to be there. So I'd like a motion, please, and a second.
So moved. Second.
I hear a motion from Vice Mayor, why can't I think of your name tonight? Osborne. And I heard a second from Councilman Loretano. So we're open for discussion.
Lynn, I have a question. Planning and zoning has in the recommendation, you've recommended 2 terms for all commissions or commissions, boards, advisory, yet planning and zoning has traditionally had a 3-term limit. Will this supersede planning and zoning?
No, and I should have put that in the COAC. My apologies. That is in the zoning ordinance, that there are 3-year terms, and that will stay that way. And if at some time that you want to change it, you would have to change the zoning ordinance.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Questions?
What are we doing here? We're going to get 3 people here from council? Is
Right now, you're just formally approving the process.
We're not doing that tonight.
No other questions.
Okay. Any other questions? Then, so shall we, let's vote all, and,
Okay.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, now we're going to the second part of this, where we're going to ask for a motion to appoint a council subcommittee for boards, commissions, committee appointments for the term ending June 30th, 2012. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I hear a motion from Councilman Campbell and a second from Councilman Pizzillo. Open for council discussion.
I want to be on it.
For public record, Gary wants to be on it.
I do too.
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot want to be on it. We probably have everybody on this council wants to be on it, but
We only need 3.
we need 3. And thank you for your hands going up. I'm not sure who will be on it at this time. So, so I guess that's the end of the discussion.
I would like to have a subcommittee. I know the Arts and Culture Commission they have 1 vacancy right now. They're planning on, hopefully, that you appoint someone tonight, 3 people, 3 members.
So you want me to point this before we
And
pass
they want to get moving on
All right.
the appointment for that committee.
So people that raise their hands, Mr. Gelser. Okay, I think we have it. So what we're looking at is Councilman Gelser, Councilman Stipp, and Councilwoman Campbell.
So there was a motion
There's
to
a
appoint
motion.
a subcommittee, and it would be Councilmember Stipp, Campbell, and Gilzer.
That's right. That's correct. So let's vote on this, please. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
All right, thank you.
I'm going to give her a minute to get down. Sit down there. That's right. You're right. We're up to C.
This is concurrent.
So C, we will now consider a concurrence in the Bureau of Land Management's proposed record of decision for the Sonoran Solar Energy Project. Joe Schmidt to present.
Good evening again, Mayor Lord, council members. As you introduced, this is a request for a concurrence letter from the City of Goodyear as a cooperating agency in the environmental impact statement for the Sonoran Solar Energy Project. This gives you a little bit of an idea where the project is located. It's within that blue area. That's actually the city limits of the town of Buckeye, and then the purple line is the city limits for the City of Goodyear. And you can see that although it's not located in our planning area, or our city limits, it is very close. And so we were invited to be a cooperating agency and participate in the environmental impact statement. What a cooperating agency gets to do is it actually gets to work on the document behind the scenes before the document is released for public comment. And that was very beneficial to understand what was going on and what was being proposed as we went through the process. This zeroes in a little bit closer. Again, you can see the town limits for Buckeye and the Goodyear planning area. The project is about 2 miles west of our planning area at the present time. And it's 5 miles west of Rainbow Valley Road and 1 mile north of the Riggs Road alignment. It'll primarily be accessed from the west from State Road 85, which you can see on the left hand of the map. And there'll be an access road that'll come into the site along that dotted line. It'll also, the power that's generated will connect to the jojoba switch yard, which is that triangular shaped symbol with a dot in the middle. As with any environmental impact statement, the alternatives, several alternatives are evaluated. The no action alternative is always one that's considered. What happens if we don't do anything? And then there's all the proposed action. In this case, it was a proposal for a concentrated solar thermal project. And it had one alternative, which was alternative A, which was the concentrated solar thermal, but with reduced water use. And then it had an alternative B, which was the same type of technology with a reduced footprint. In other words, 2/3 the size of what was originally proposed, with the thinking that if you have the impacts from the project, if you had a smaller project, it would have less impact. And so that was the alternatives that were considered. Photovoltaic was dismissed at the initial scoping of the project for being economically infeasible, but as it went through the process, it was determined that photovoltaic should be looked at again under the reduced water use alternative, and it proved to be the preferred alternative. This is the site plan for the project. You can see in the different shades, I think each one of the different colored shading represents about 100 megawatts. The project is proposed to be a total of 300 megawatts constructed in 100 megawatt phases, 3 phases over 39 months. Will occupy over 2,000 acres. And with the photovoltaic technology, it plans to use 33 acre feet per year compared to 3,000 acre feet per year as originally proposed. It's proposed by Boulevard Associates, which is a subsidiary of NextEra Energy Resources LLC, which in turn is a subsidiary of NextEra Energy Inc., which also owns Florida Light and Power, or Power and Light, I guess. The project will assist the state and Arizona Corporation Commission's renewable energy standard and tariff rules, which requires utilities to have 15% of its supplies from renewables by 2025. As I mentioned, the original proposal was for concentrated solar thermal of 375 megawatts in 2 generating blocks of 125 and 250, and it would have occupied 3,600 acres. The subalternative A1, which is the photovoltaic, now proposes 300 megawatts on 2,000 acres using photovoltaic panels. However, the area of analysis that was reviewed in the environmental impact statement process covered over 14,000 acres, or almost 22 square miles, so it was really looked at in depth. This is the technology that was originally proposed, which is the concentrated solar thermal, and it uses what's called a parabolic trough that has mirrors on it. It concentrates the sunlight on the heat collection element, which is basically a pipe that runs above the mirrors. And then there's a fluid inside that pipe that is taken back to a generating station. And the heated fluid, which is over 700 degrees, heats water to the boiling point, and then the boiling water creates steam, which powers the turbines. That was the original technology that was proposed. It would have required a power block, 2 power blocks at the site that would look like this with steam vents. You can see the piping that sticks up above it. That won't be on the photovoltaic site. The photovoltaic module will only be about 8 feet tall. It'll be articulated so that it could actually track with the sun to some degree to enhance the electric generation ability. During the process, we had identified initially 4 key issues that we felt were important to Goodyear: the impact on the groundwater, potential noise impacts, site access, and visual impacts. This gives you kind of an overall summary of the differences between the original proposed action, which was what cooled CST, and then the alternative A. As I mentioned, there was 3,700 acres that would be used in the original action, and now that's been reduced to 2,000 acres. The original action would have required 90 acres of evaporation ponds because of the water that would have been used in the process, and now it would only require 1 acre or less, which also has an impact on the migrating birds, where you don't have to worry about it as much with 1 acre compared to 90 acres. The water use was projected to be 3,000 acre-feet per year under the wet cooling alternative, and now it's down to 33. It's about 10% of the original water uses proposed. And what the project will do is it'll take groundwater from a set of wells, which are actually within our planning area, and tap the aquifer that is in the Rainbow Valley area, which is an aquifer that we intend to use at some point in the future. And so we were concerned about this type of a use, which is what you refer to as a consumptive use, because once it comes out of the ground, it doesn't go back in. Visual resources, it was going to have 50-foot tall cooling towers, and the linear troughs, the PV panels will be lower, won't have any towers, won't have any emission plumes. The air quality will be better impacted because the original proposal had an supplementary natural gas, so that when the sun was down and the concentrated solar thermal panels couldn't produce electricity, they would use natural gas to fire the plants, and so that's been eliminated. Noise would be a lot less. There's a lot less moving parts, very few moving parts compared to the steam generation and the turbines that would have been in the original proposal. There will be no gas pipeline disturbance. There's no heat transfer fluid in the photovoltaics, and so that will be eliminated. The only downside to the change is that there would have been 1,500 peak construction workforce on the original proposal. Now they estimate it'll be 378. There'll be 1,000 vehicle trips. Those will be reduced to 340, so that's good. Instead of a permanent workforce of 200, they expect a permanent workforce of 16. So that's the downside to the alternative. But I think the other benefits outweigh that. So the action we're requesting tonight is that you approve a motion to concur in the Bureau of Land Management's proposed record of decision for the environmental impact statement for the Sonoran Solar Energy Project, and authorize for the preferred alternative that was identified in the document, and authorize the city manager to execute a letter of concurrence.
Thank
With
you,
that,
Joe. Are there
conclude
any
my
speaker
presentation.
cards? No speaker cards. Well, I'd like to hear a motion, please, to concur with BLML proposed record of decision to select the preferred alternative identified in the Sonoran Solar Energy Project final environmental impact statement. Do I hear a motion? So moved. Second?
I'll second.
Hear a motion from Councilman Gelser and a second from Councilman Laura Tano. Open for council discussion. Yes, Councilman Gelser.
I have a question. In your proposal, you talked about the 15% requirement for renewable energy that the Arizona Corporation Commission has instituted. The Goldwater Institute has been challenging that ruling in court. Is there any enlightenment, or is that, where are we on the litigation on that, or is that I have to go find out?
Yeah, I'm afraid you've asked the wrong person on that question, Councilman Gelser. I apologize, I do not know.
That's fine.
Could look.
I mean, could we, find out where that was? And that may be old information.
Would you like to repeat that again?
I'm sorry. Would you report back to council what the status of the legal challenge to the 15% renewable energy is from the Arizona Corporation Commission to private utilities? Thank you.
Appreciate that.
I have one question.
Yes, Councilman.
For the critters, Okay, the EIS study. With the proximity to the Sonoran Monument, that wildlife corridor, the bighorn sheep, what was the outcome? Do you know what the outcome was? Are there findings, how this relates to it?
Mayor Lord, Vice Mayor Osborne, generally I recall the preferred alternative in particular benefited the wildlife because of the reduced footprint. It obviously impacted a lesser area. I don't believe they felt that the wildlife, that this particular site interfered significantly with any wildlife movement corridors. The concern they had was with burrowing owls, and they will, during the construction process, have to relocate any burrowing owls. They've worked extensively with Arizona Game and Fish, and they basically have done an analysis and made recommendations that would be included in the BLM permit.
Okay, and one last question just for curiosity. That area right now, it's not cattle roaming, is it?
Mm-mm.
Mayor Lord, Vice Mayor Osborne, yes it is. 1,900 and some acres would be
Just curious if they
removed from the below allotment.
So if a cow
moved to
runs
the
into
below
the solar
allotment.
Removed from the below allotment.
Removed. Oh, I thought you said moved.
If a cow runs into the solar panel, who's liable?
Is that like a chicken? Why did the chicken cross the road?
I'm assuming it's going to be fenced in.
It will be fenced.
Councilwoman Campbell?
Joe, I have a question regarding the water wells. Who owns those water wells that they're going to be using?
Mayor Lord, Councilmember Campbell, the wells would be on BLM property, and they would be issued a permit, just like they would be issued a permit for operating the plant.
Okay, is that the aquifer that went dry many, many years ago and has now come back? Or is this a separate one?
I am not, from looking at the reports, I do not recall any information about it ever going dry.
The one in Rainbow Valley had gone dry, where they had the large citrus farming area, and they were farming up until a certain time, and the water dried up, and now it has now come back.
That could very well be a function of usage in relation to the wells that they had drilled and the depth of the wells,
okay,
as opposed to the water being gone.
Okay. And they're not going to have any standing water ponds anywhere other than the small one that you mentioned?
Just the 1 acre,
okay,
which what they do is they'll pump the groundwater, and then they'll treat it just like we would treat it to make it potable quality. They will probably use a reverse osmosis process, which generates brine like our treatment does, and you have to dispose of the brine. So that 1 acre would basically be a brine evaporation pond where you put it out there, the concentrated brine evaporates, and then after time you remove the solids and landfill it.
Okay, thanks very much.
Any other discussion? Well, then let's vote on it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. So let's go to the information items. Does council have any comments or commentation, reports on current events?
I do.
Councilman Stipp.
We, several of us attended the employee award event a couple of weeks ago, and I just wanted to give a congratulations to Joe Schmitz and Oscar Navarro from the fire department, Neil Brady from Parks and Rec, Buddy Dudko from PD, Sandra Rode from Public Works, and Anna Dizak from, and she was the city manager's award, excellence award winner. That was it was a great event. It was great that we recognized the employees. And I also had the opportunity to attend we called it the Native American Art Display. But as I found from talking to the quote-unquote artists, they don't consider it art. That for them it's a way of telling their story and showing their gods and their plates and their cups. It was, for a non-art person, it was absolutely fascinating. So if anybody gets an opportunity as you walk through City Hall, take a look at some of those things that are on display. It is really, truly fascinating, particularly the kachinas that are down in the lobby as you first enter. Everything that is painted on those is done with pigment actually from the earth, and I thought that was pretty amazing. So I want to give a thanks to Councilman Gelzer for pushing culture my way.
Councilwoman Campbell?
I attended the Vanderbilt Farms annual HOA meeting as well as the Rio Paseo HOA meeting, and some stormwater issues were brought to my attention, and staff is looking into it and taking care of it for us. Thank you.
Very good. Councilman Pizzillo?
Just mentioned, I guess, saw Wally. It was at the McFeast.
Oh, that's right.
This weekend over there in Avondale. What was it, about 6,000 people? People showed up for that. Tip of the hat to Mr. Mellon, who's a big sponsor of that. That event was, heavily attended. I mean, it was a great event for that. Also attended the employee awards. Great event. It was nice to see the employees get recognized on that. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
I attended the PACE 2011 Civic Engagement Conference. Got to hear Dr. Crow speak about economic vitality, not only for Arizona but for the nation. It was pretty impressive. And also good old KJ, of the Phoenix Suns, mayor of Sacramento, and something that he did as a challenge to our school districts, and having every third grader reading at a third grade level. It was pretty interesting because kids reading to the third grade, they're learning to read, and after the third grade they're reading to learn. And unfortunately, from what I understand, in the state of Arizona, 26% of third graders only read at their third grade level. So that's quite alarming if that is correct. And just to let you know, the MAG Continuum of Care and Homelessness, this year we are going to not be having the point-in-time street count on homelessness. There will still be a shelter count, just to let you all know, but not the point-in-time street count. HUD only requires it every other year, and so that's something that's going on. And I don't remember what else, so thank you.
It's good information. Thank you.
I forgot my list.
Yeah, same way. Mr. Gelzer?
The employee appreciation event was great. Thank you.
Very good. Now, City Manager, you have anything to report on this evening?
No, I don't, Madam Mayor.
I guess the follow-ups, and I guess important that the citizen that spoke this evening asked for some answers, so I guess that's one of our follow-ups.
We will get all of that, yes.
Okay. Anything else follow-up? Do you want the City Manager to follow up on? I will say that I got feedback from one council person, so I had made the suggestion that there's a possibility of putting all your activities, typed out and then handed in and just feature on one of them. I don't think I'm getting good response to that, so it was just a suggestion on my part. So I guess... I know, but I can control this agenda, but I'm also a big consensus builder, and if my council believes that they want that opportunity, what I would ask of you is that when you attend some of these meetings, that you bring, as you did tonight, Vice Mayor, some pertinent information on the committees that you're on, so that it's more information for the rest of the council to learn by. So could we make that concession from the rest of you, that we would get that? And so I'm going to leave it as the most of you would like it to stay, okay? Other than that, we are now going to adjourn this meeting, and we're going to have a special meeting so that it'll ease you somewhat. I will adjourn this meeting. I will call the special meeting to order. We will do the roll call, and then I'll say we're going to take a break, because I'm looking at all of you, and you're going, so we'll do that, okay? We got it? So this meeting is adjourned. And so now I'd like to call to order a special meeting, November 28th, and all of us are in our seats and here, and we have, of course, a business item, and so upon roll call, so I have to have formal roll call, we may convene to an executive session as posted for the following. But I would like to put in there, we would like to take, what, a 10-minute break? Do you want that long?
Yes.
A 10-minute? We would like to do a 10-minute break.
You need a motion to go into e-session?
That's right. Do I hear a
So
motion?
moved.
Second.
All right, I heard a motion by Councilman Stipp and a second by Councilman Campbell. And
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Osborne?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Gelzer?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
aye.
Passes 7-0.
All right, so with that, we'll go for a break.
For a break.
All right.
Break.